The first response, instant response, was, oh, it's not that bad. And then, a millisecond later, you realise it only appears not that bad because of the prediction that there might be fewer than 100 Conservative MPs. It's still a terrible result.
Michael Gove's in the studio.
Good morning, Matt.
Welcome to your exit interview.
Thank you.
A chance for us both to learn what you could have done better. The question...
I don't think we've got enough time to cover that.
You became an MP in 2005, so
Yes.
19 years.
Yes.
The question I asked everyone when I was doing the exit interviews was first of all, why did you decide to leave?
I felt that I was coming to the end of my useful contribution in public life. I'd been a minister for 13 out of the 14 years. I think that there's only so much that any individual can give before people are wondering, why is he or she still here? So I thought it was better to leave before people asked the question, why are you still here?
What do you say to those people who said you just looked at the polls and you were going to get defeated by the Lib Dems in your seat?
Well, we were defeated by the Lib Dems in Surrey Heath, and we had an excellent Conservative candidate, Ed McGuinness, who was, energetic. I'm sure he will be an MP in the future. One of the things that I did think is that actually, because there was a formidable Lib Dem challenge, having fresh blood, a new and energetic face and voice would help. Of course, in the end, Al Pinkerton, the Lib Dem candidate, became the MP, and congratulations to him. Nice chap and very clever. Very good maiden speech earlier this week.
Do you think that what you think actually might have been worse if you'd been the candidate? They might have,
Yes.
the Lib Dems might have thrown the kitchen sink and tried to get you out.
Yes, I think that there was a real risk that because I'd been around for so long in government, that I became the sort of the ugly face of 14 years of Tory misrule, and that there would have been an extra element in people, because there are many aspects to the election, but one of them was a desire just to eject all Conservatives everywhere. And there is, I think, a risk in the seat that actually I would have become emblematic of that move to get rid of Conservatives everywhere. So I felt that a different candidate might give us a better chance. But in the end, the result, a 5,000 Lib Dem majority, I don't think anyone, whoever they were, would have been able to resist that.
When you saw that result and all the other results come in, were you surprised, disappointed? How did it compare to your expectations? That having been in Parliament and in government for such a long time, to see it all come to the end in quite such a spectacular way?
Well, to an extent, I, like so many people, have been softened up because there have been MRP polls and so on, which were predicting various forms of Armageddon. And in the end, I think a bit like George Osborne, the first response, instant response, was, oh, it's not that bad. And then, a millisecond later, you realise it only appears not that bad because of the prediction that there might be fewer than 100 Conservative MPs. It's still a terrible result. And what really hit home was sitting on Saturday morning, looking through the Times coverage of each individual election result, looking at by how much we'd lost in particular places, and also seeing those names in black and white of friends who had lost their seat, who, to my mind, didn't deserve by any measure to lose, but the inevitable logic of the swing away from us meant that good people were cast out.
Where do you think blame lies for that? Is it just what happens after 14 years of government? Is it an accumulation of Boris Johnson, Liz Truss? Is it that Rishi Sunak didn't turn out to actually be terribly good at politics?
I think I don't want to be definitive yet, because there's I think a temptation for people immediately after a defeat to say, well, actually what we should have done is X, which inevitably prompts the question, well, why weren't you saying that beforehand? Or why weren't you doing that beforehand? If you're so smart now, why did you end up being part of this terrible result? So I think that there were things that went wrong. Observably, the reaction to Partygate and the reaction to the mini budget led to significant dips in the polls. But there's a broader, deeper thing, which is not to absolve us of responsibility, because we've got to be humble and honest and questioning as to why we lost. There are many factors, but I think one big thing is COVID. All sorts of governments of whatever colour that were in power during the pandemic ended up being kicked out because the influence of the pandemic, however well or badly handled it was a significant increase in public spending, real pressure on public finances, and real pressure on public services, not just the NHS, but education as well.
You came in 2005. You entered government in 2010. And like you said, apart from the gap year that Theresa May gave you, you were there in some form or another for a long time. What was the job you enjoyed the most? And then we'll come to the one you enjoyed the least.
Actually, the one I enjoyed the most was being Environment Secretary. It was a job that I never expected to have. It was a job that Theresa gave me. Views about Brexit will continue to, divide and resound for generations to come. But it was one department where we were energised as a result of Brexit, because suddenly we had to take decisions on environmental regulation, on farming, on food, on fisheries that had been constrained all the time that we were in the EU. Now, it may be that we made the wrong decisions. I don't think that we did. But the key thing is there was a chance to make a difference. And also, I got to work with some amazing people. DEFRA had sometimes been thought of as a Cinderella department, but in fact, the people who worked there, the civil servants, were passionate about their subject area. And there were people I got to know in the environmental NGOs and in the farming representative organisations who were wonderful people. So I was introduced to an area that I was interested in before, but then became absolutely absorbed by.
And the job you enjoyed the least?
Chief Whip.
Why was that?
Because I was useless. I was the worst.
Did you get locked in a toilet?
Yes, on my first effective day in office, I popped to the loo in the wrong voting lobby, and I had to stay in the loo in order not to have my vote recorded as Chief Whip in the wrong division lobby, and it went downhill from there. I don't know how many times radio listeners remember Mr. Barraclough, the weak prison officer who's the contrast to Mr. Mackay in Porridge. I had all of, the chief whip is supposed to be the disciplinarian. I had all the disciplinary machismo of Mr. Barraclough on a bad day. I was completely inappropriate for that role.
You were there as part of the David Cameron modernisation process, 2005 to 2010. Looking at where we are now, you've got people say they're flirting with reform. We should leave the ECHR. More and more. We should do more culture wars and right wingery. It feels like maybe the party's more in the William Hague stage of opposition than David Cameron. How does whoever replaces Rishi Sunak as leader avoid that? Avoid actually what James Cleverly was talking about. Not even being the official opposition.
I think there's. The timing of the leadership election allows people an opportunity to take a breather and to reflect, which I think is important, because almost every Conservative is punch drunk at the moment. I mentioned earlier the natural desire to reach for a ready explanation. But so many of the explanations of our defeat are the explanations that people would have given anyway. So it's very rare that someone says, I've actually looked at the data and the evidence about what people think or how we performed, and do you know what? I've changed my mind about this. So I think a certain degree of patience and humility in some areas is required. Not abject and craven surrender of principle, but just a thoughtful approach. If I was to throw in my tuppence worth, I think that having a proper, rigorous, arguably tough answer on migration will be part of the mix. But just as, if not more important, is having a proper policy on the economy, an alternative Conservative story about growth. And just as important as that will be having answers on the NHS. I think that in particular, one of the areas where and this is a hesitant judgment, where I think that we lost our way, is that we didn't have a convincing account, both during the pandemic and afterwards, of why we believed in the NHS and what we would do to improve it.
So who would you like to see? You backed Kemi in the past. Kemi Badenoch for leader?
I'm not going to endorse anyone at this stage because it will only harm their prospects.
Very good. We've got to move on. We need to move on. We're going to do the next bit.
What have been your favourite interviews and why?
Well, this one, obviously, actually, the day that you came on when we were at Tory Party Conference and I gave you a banana.
Yes.
Because one of the big announcements was to do with bendy bananas, and you just sat fiddling with it the whole time, and I found it very, very distracting. I think some of by far and away, the best interviews on the show have been, I think, with former people like yourself, former chancellors, former prime ministers, because you get a bit more honesty and a bit more understanding of the job rather than just regurgitating of the lines. I think the interview which will stick with me forever was there's a listener called Claire Fisher who got in touch and said she was listening to the show. She loved the show. She was about to have another session of chemo, and so make it a good one. And I said on the air, that's a lot of pressure, you know. And she kept in touch. She used to work I think she used to work in the Cabinet Office, and had sort of started a campaign for better palliative care and that sort of stuff. And she kept in touch. She came on the show a few times. And the last interview I did with her, she was in a hospice, and I spoke to her, and she spoke so fluently and passionately, but without being mawkish about what she was facing. And I know from the reaction we got how much that meant to listeners. In fact, even me talking about it now,
No, quite.
And that's really important. And
Yes.
actually, the whole time, 4 years on the radio, I've been through ups and downs and lost people and all of that. And as listeners have, and I've had so many messages of people saying, you got me through my hospital thing or whatever. And that's more important. Actually, then it's such a faff sometimes getting an interview with a big name politician who then don't deliver anything.
Quite.
And actually doing all the stuff in between is more important.
Yes. I can quite understand, and I can see from your expression, Matt, how much
didn't mean to do
how
that.
much, but how much you're still moved by it.
I should have said interviewing Basil Brush.
No, but the listener reaction is such an
Yeah.
important part
Yeah.
of the show and the relationship that you've had with listeners. What's been the least favourite part of the job?
What's been the least favourite? Oh, that's a good question, because I've sort of enjoyed it all. I think. I can't... Has there been anything... Erin, has there been anything I've not enjoyed? What's been my least favourite part of the job?
Hearing people like me say, the plan is working, Matt.
Oh, yeah, well, that's fine. But you do it. That's fine, because I take the mick about it after. I mean, there were a lot of prereqs. There were days when it was a beautiful day outside, and I think, we can leave straight after the show, and then I'd have a whole... But it was worth doing because of the show. I genuinely... That's terrible, because it sounds like that's a sort of patsy answer. I can't think of anything I didn't enjoy.
No, that's great. What were the funniest moments that you had in the show? Crazy Golf with Ed Davey?
Crazy Golf with Ed Davies probably up there, not least because when he came on the show during the election campaign, he claimed that was part of the inspiration for his election campaign strategy. So we were sort of partly responsible for that. I think the clip I played earlier on of the egg and spoon race, when we went to the very first party conferences in 2020, I wanted to do something that was a bit different. And I think Times Radio were giving out egg cups. So we thought egg cups, eggs, egg and spoon race. We'll do an egg and spoon race around party conference. And the finish line for one of them ended up being behind the BBC set. And the egg and spoon race sort of clattered onto...
In front of Andrew Neil?
No, Joe Coburn.
Yes,
Coburn
of
was
course.
there. And Joe Coburn was sort of went, lively behind us. And so that was a lot of fun. I think things going wrong, particularly innuendos, the weird, the montages and the mixes and all of that. Yeah.
And during the exit interviews, you generally ask MPs to sum up their bosses in one word.
good
And
Lord.
very generously, you didn't ask me that. But here's your chance to sum up your production team
Oh, my God.
in one word.
Yeah.
Tom.
Is heavy-footed one word?
Yes.
Okay.
Kia.
Australian.
Lewis.
Lewis. Ninja.
Erin.
Hair.
And Andrew.
Oh, Andrew. I'm so grateful to Andrew because we worked together years and years ago in the regional lobby and he joined the show 2 years ago. And I just couldn't have done it without him. And I know that because I tried for 2 years. And he's a genius.
Yes.
He's a genius.
One other question you've always asked in exit interviews was the advice that that any MP would give to their successor.
Yes.
What advice would you give to Hugo Rifkin?
Oh, look after the team. The team are the best. I do all the larking about. I sprinkle my nonsense over the top of it all, but they book everything. They book some of it, and some of it's scripted and everything. The team are absolutely brilliant. But listen to the listeners, and don't do like everyone else.
And how should he handle Patrick Maguire?
Firmly.